Um, just on the data, Ashley sent, all of you would have gotten a spreadsheet from Ashley, and don't discount the work that you want to put into that spreadsheet, because, and read her instructions thoroughly, like several times, just to understand what you're asking, because you've probably got a bunch of people in there you don't want or need to import. And it's a great time to clean up. Database cleanup. Your database is everything in this business, right? That's your freaking business, right? So it's everybody that's in there, and it's not a Rolodex, it's relationships. And clutter can like really jack with you because there's too much, and you end up, if you're sitting there with a bunch of unfinished tasks in your database, part of the reason is you've got task scheduled for people you don't even know who they freaking are anymore. And so it's important to, if you take the time to, if you've got do not contact people in there, or, or anybody in a status similar to that, there's no reason to bring them in. If you've got people that you never categorize, if there's no stages or sub stages for somebody, same thing. Like, if you got to figure out, like, well, why do you have this name? Otherwise you just got a Rolodex and you don't even know who's in it. And that doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, I'm not saying delete them. It's like, do some investigative work and decide whether or not they want to be in there, and they ought to be in there, because if they're in there, if you've got somebody in your database, and this is something I learned from Mike White years ago, and it's true, if you've got somebody in your database and there's nothing if there's nothing scheduled in the future with that client, it's a Rolodex. That's all it is. It's like a business card on your desk and you don't even know what you're doing with it. So you have to have something scheduled in the future. Otherwise, there's no point to having the name in there, because that's how the system is supposed to work. That's it for me. Mike, go ahead, take over, buddy.
Well, some time ago, Dave, you talked to everybody about 40 by the end of the year, talking to 40 people. How is that going? Anyone want to share how that's going? Where are you at on that? Or have you kept track of how close are you to 40? Uh-huh.
I have 18.
All
right.
I might have missed this meeting.
Well, hey, that's on us. If you don't, people respect what you inspect, right? So if we didn't follow up on it, I guess that's on us. But it's a tough time of year to finish that out, right? Everybody's kind of getting ready for Christmas. If you talk to referral sources, like, I don't have anybody, leave me alone. So I'm really encouraged that we are getting the leads. But one of the things I want to talk about, and for those that I've spoken with, we've already talked about this as we start looking at your goals for the coming year. For those of you that are still coming up, you are going to hear this in detail. But the time, money, and effort that we put into getting a lead and then a loan is immense. And we have to be better at leveraging the work that we're already doing. When we want to expand and grow our efforts, we can't be just trying the same thing brand new every month. You can't reinvent yourself every month. You burn yourself out. And a lot of that has to do with referrals. And I'm going to use, and you can call her if you'd like, Liz Peter up in Minneapolis. Great originator. She was closing, I don't know, about 10 loans a month. So great originator, right? Solid numbers. And she wanted to grow her business. And I started to ask her, well, how many referrals are you getting from the people that you're closing today? She's like, none. I don't even ask, really. And we know why we don't ask. We know all of those types of things, but I can share with all of you the psychology behind that. But first, I'm going to kind of jump to the end. So we put together a strategy wherein it was going to be possible. I've always kind of kept my originator's license. So I'm like, I'm going to show you. Next time we get somebody, let me show you what we do. So did the appointment with her. I got 4 referrals from the person that we did the loan for at application. I called those 4 people and I got 3 more, almost one per person. So I leveraged 7 leads out of that 1 lead that we got from the realtor. So then I'm like, okay, now let's close that loop. So we thanked the realtor and said, by the way, we just added 7 more people to our joint marketing database that will hopefully turn into loans and sales for you in the future. Tell me that we didn't win that realtor, right? Forever. That realtor is never going anywhere, because no loan officer turns 1 into 7, right? Anyway, Liz, fast forward a year, she was closing 20 units and had 0 more referral partners. Doubled her business. Half of her business was coming from referrals from existing business. And I think that concept needs to exist all the way through, right? It's it becomes an incredibly huge value proposition. Jonathan, you and I talked a lot about this yesterday. When you're out there working with real estate agents and stuff like that, who's going to compete with us when we can generate that level of leverage for them that's tagged to them in the system that we're now marketing to, right? Because the realtors aren't in any different space than we are, right? They have to go out there back on the hamster wheel every month, reinvent themselves. How different does their life come when they have a partner in us who's looking at our joint business? Like, I'm going to make it so that we don't have to go find new people every single month. And for us, we can't fall into that trap as originators either, where we're just waiting for people who are terrible fishermen. I think we talked about that last time I talked to you, waiting to feed us. They're the worst fishermen in the world. They're the worst salespeople in the world. I'm not waiting for them. Give me that information, right? And so I want to make sure that we're leveraging that data all of the time. Chris, I love, you got this huge open rate and people are calling you, and then just happy you got some refis that are coming from that. Do we forget to ask those, even if they're prior customers, they can give us new people every time. For me, it was always part of the value proposition of what I provide. I want you to introduce me to new people so that I can constantly be growing my database. Home buy is huge, right, Chris? I mean, like, it's amazing how cool that becomes. How easy is that conversation? I'd be like, hey, Dave, yeah, absolutely. Let's have a conversation about whether it's the right time to sell your house or not. By the way, who are 3 other people that would be interested in getting information like this, right? How do I grow that database? The future is going to be won by the people who have the biggest database, who have the best way to engage that database and control that business, right? And so I wanted to have a little bit of an open forum around this concept to see if there's things that I can help you with in how we do that, or anyone that's having success in it today. But I think the biggest key as we look at 2025 for us to unlock is, how do we leverage the work we're already doing? We've got these great goals. We're out there grinding already. We've got to leverage that. The effort has to be leveraged more than just what you're doing today, because it's too much time, money, and effort going into it. So who's on the call? Who's the best at it in our company today?
Getting past client referrals, or just asking for the business?
I'm talking about, if you've got a lead today, do you get referrals from that lead every time? The people that I have coached and the people that I work with average over 3 referrals for every referral they get. So you're quadrupling your chances, right? So, Brian, but you spoke up, so you must feel somewhat confident. Tell me more about what you do, man.
I'm not. That's the thing. I'm not confident on it. I want to be better in this realm. And so, like, I'm so open to hearing about the success that you have, because I think we all know that we could be better. And we're all kind of weenies about asking for the referral in a way, because we don't want to rub the client the wrong way. I mean, I can speak on probably behalf of like Chris and G. They probably get, and Jack, maybe like they get some good past client referrals. I'm not in that boat. Like, I get a couple few a year, maybe, and so it's like a huge opportunity. Yet I know I have great success. I've got only 5-star reviews on Google. So there's a lapse there, right? And that starts with me.
Yeah, and I think, by the time the transaction is done, I found it's too late. It's got to be during the live transaction. It's got to be during the initial consultation. And I think that for me, some people have different philosophies, right? I mean, I've heard a lot of the scripting that talks about, hey, well, my job is to do a, 5-star service. If I deliver that, will you give me this? I get referrals and leads from people who I can't even get loans for today. Right. But to me, it's never been a matter of that. It's about that long game, right? Because I am willing to hustle today. I just don't want to hustle and do cold calling for the rest of my career. Right. So for me, it's about the long game. And I always would tell agents, like, I don't need you to pre-qualify people. Just give me anyone that you can come up with, because the answer is yes to everyone. The only differentiator is when, right? Foreclosed on last month might be 7 years. I don't know, but it's yes, but when. But I will turn them into business at some point in time. So just give me people. And some of the best referral sources back, in the old dinosaur days when I was originating, one of my best referral sources was one of those customers that I had to kind of work with for years to get them fixed to where I could get them a home. but they referred me tons of business in between, kind of start to finish. We have to do a better job of asking. So why don't we ask, right? You get these 5-star reviews. I mean, Chris, Jack, G, like you're well known, you're superstars in the market. Why don't you ask?
I've always just, yes, been of the mindset of asking once you've delivered, a closing. So I never really thought about asking throughout the transaction. So that's.
I wasn't
So-
good at this. I mean, I had lots of clients, and I think I'm thinking about why I didn't ask, because I don't think it's natural to ask. And so you must have some really good talk tracks for this to be able to deliver, to get that level of productivity out of it. I know that one of the reasons that I didn't ask, because I'm like all of these guys, is that always did a great job. And then I would have certain customers that referred me like it was their job. Like John Lopez was one of those guys who, like, everybody he met, like, oh, you got to talk to my buddy Dave. And Milt Reimer was the same way. And I had several clients like that just referred me all the time, and I never asked them to do it. And so I just thought, well, why doesn't everybody do that? And because it's not natural for everybody. I mean, there's some clients that are like, I mean, I'm sure you all have somebody who's like always referring you, and that's what I had. And so I was like, well, I don't know why everybody doesn't do that, and so I think that was one of my mental blocks, Mike.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting because the industry is pushing us to a greater and greater commoditization of what we do, right? And what we have to do is fight against that. And so if I'm providing a service, I don't want to be just like you drove up to a drive-through and you ordered something and I delivered it. And if I delivered it to you fast enough and accurately enough, now my job is complete. I want to talk about what it is that I'm really providing to you. And, high level, we don't have necessarily time right here to go through the whole thing. But one of the things that I was very focused on that was important to me is I'm providing you advice. I'm going to help you on a journey to get you generational wealth through real estate. That's what my goal is. A loan has nothing to do with it for me, right? And so, quick caveat to that, sometimes I didn't have people rate shop me either, because I was always talking about, look, if rate's the most important thing to you, I will refer you to a place that will give you probably the best rate that you can find and give you the best chance of success. But don't worry, I'm still going to be there and educate you, because they're not going to educate you as what's going on, explain what's happening, because they're not going to do that. And I'm going to be there to pick up the pieces in case they mess up. And you would ask me, why in the world would you do that, Mike? Said, well, Dave, because you're my client. And I don't care about this transaction. Your next one is mine. Your kids are mine. Your parents' reverses are going to be like, whatever it is, I'm your financial advisor. And my close was always, Jonathan, we talked about this. I was always, will you trust me to help you along that journey? It's a very powerful close. Will you trust me to help you along that journey, right? But as part of this transaction that we're going through, my side is like, this is what I'm delivering, but what are you going to deliver, right? Here's some things that I need from you, that I expect from you as part of this relationship. If I'm going to help you along this journey, I need you to do some things, right? So specific to this transaction is, when we ask for things, I need you to get them to me really quickly, right? That's kind of what I need you to do. But as we look around this journey, what I need from you is I can't have my time all spent going out there and finding new business. I need you to introduce me to people. I never use the word referral. People hate referral. It's scary, because nobody wants to have their friend call them like, why did you sick that salesperson on me, right? So I need you to introduce me to a few people. And that's where I would go through. It's like, don't worry, I don't need you to figure out whether or not they're ready to buy, and maybe you don't know, or we're ready to sell. I'm only interested, I think you guys heard me say this before, I'm only interested in two kinds of people with homes and people without homes. So as long as you can get me one of those types of categories, that's fine, because I'm going to educate them. I'm Chris, right? I've got a newsletter that educates people everything that's happening in the industry. It's so valuable for people to see. Everyone needs to see this information. And that's all I'm really going to do. I'm not going to call them like, hey, Dave said to give you a call and you're ready to buy a house tomorrow. No, I tell them what I'm going to do. So it takes away the fear of the introduction as well. I'm going to send them this information. Who do you know that would love to get, if they do have a home, would love to get home bought and know those types of things after I've been introduced to them, and I can have them trust me on helping them on their financial journey too. Even if they went through their bank or someone else, I don't care. because a single transaction is not what I'm about. I'm about a relationship of advice that's going to lead to generational wealth, right? So anyway, as you kind of go through that process, now it's really easy to say, you know, so will you trust me? Yes. Will you do those things for me? Yes. Well, now that I kind of have set that table, so who would benefit on my advice, my newsletter, the information? All I need is name and an email. I'll take it from there, right? Or name and a cell number. I'll take it from there. There's no reason I can't get that right at application. Because in the meantime, what is the obstacle, right? We're so worried about getting a loan and all the reasons they might leave us. That's one of the obstacles we have, right? I don't want to give them any reason to tell me no for anything. Well, yeah, and if I'm
That's a
sitting
legit-
there and
That's a
kind
legit
of,
reason.
what's
That's a
that?
legit reason. That's a legit reason why I wouldn't ask at that
Yeah.
point is like, well, I don't want to like muddy the waters and bring up something that doesn't have anything to do with why they called me.
And here's what I will say is any time in my life I've acted out of fear, fear has become my destiny. And exactly the thing I feared is what happened. I have to have enough confidence in this relationship that I'm having and the value that I'm providing that when I say, will you trust me to help you guide you on this journey? And you say, yes, great. This is what I need from you. I present it like it's a big deal. I'm not just, you know, cooking your burger at the drive-thru. I've got a team. I've got all of these people that are invested in helping you become successful. If you want to make, if you didn't inherit money, the only way that people in this country, normal people, make generational wealth is through real estate. Let me help you do that, right? So yes, I get why we don't want to do that, but it takes away those barriers quite a bit. When you talk about introductions, when you talk about what we're doing and things like that, when I talk about, it doesn't even matter if they're thinking of buying a home, if they have a home already, if they just bought a home, if they're never going to buy a home, they think renting is the greatest thing forever. It doesn't matter. I just need those introductions to people who would love to know what's happening in the market, advice that they can get that if they ever change their mind, if they ever decide to engage in a transaction, there's valuable information that's coming to them every week or every month or whatever it may be. It takes away the barrier. There's no reason somebody's like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. And if for whatever reason I had people at application who are like, I don't know, I got to think about it. It's like, all right, I get that. I want to remind you again that it's not a huge deal, right? These people are not going to be calling you like, why did you stick this person on me? It's valuable information that they're getting. And when I deliver you your loan approval, I want you to be ready then because I don't want any awkwardness then, right? You know, kind of joke. That'd be really awkward. So you're going to be ready then with at least 3 names? Yes, perfect. Because I'm going to get them at loan approval. Once I close the loan, everybody's moved on. They don't care. I have no leverage at that point in time. So I can do that. But it does become incredibly valuable, again, for the effort that we have and then closing the loop with the referral partners. I promise you, you win. Every single person that has really gone through this effort and tried to figure it out. And sometimes it's a little clunky, just like any type of sales pitch that you have or any type of consultation that you're working through in your scripting. It's clunky the first few times, but once you get into it, it's really just a natural flow. Some people have different takes on it. Going back to Liz, really hilarious. So Liz felt like she didn't like doing it very much unless she was face to face. And she felt when she was face to face with people, then she had an easier time and she didn't like doing it any other way, which was kind of interesting. She's an older person like me and she was like, but you know what's hilarious with that is like 90% of her applications were going through Simple Nexus online. She actually put into her entire perfect loan process and workflow. She made people come into the office and meet her and her team the week after they applied so she could ask them for it because it represented half of her business a year later. So it's like, I will totally spend the time to do that, right? Because it represents half my business. So as we look at those types of things and the goals, and again, we'll talk about this in detail with everybody, but I just want you to consider the possibility. If you're already working this hard, how do you make your life easier? Wouldn't it be nice to kind of look at, and Dave, you know Scotty Evans, right?
Uh-huh.
So he's kind of walked away now from his origination business, but Scott, he built a great big database and he became really good at this. He lived off of his database for about 15 years. And he was doing 8 to 10 transactions a month without ever talking to a realtor, without ever talking to a referral source. Not that I'm advocating that, but I'm just explaining the power of leveraging the work that you're already doing. How nice would it be when you're looking at your goals for 2025 if you're like, you know what, I know that I average 4 transactions a month just from the referrals coming in, and that's my baseline. Instead of thinking, okay, well, now what happens? If I lose a realtor, they get sick, whatever it is. Like all of a sudden your livelihood is now threatened constantly. So give me some feedback. Gee, it seems like you almost have like a little frown on your face. So
Looking forward to our call tomorrow.
Me too. I remember we went to a Todd Duncan event. It was me, Jack, Mike Cazell, a bunch of people. It was like, what, 8 years ago? And he said something similar to this. And it's like, it flipped in my mind. I was like, yeah, like if I can do less work, like having to go to 15 realtor appointments a week and do more business, like, duh. And I just looked at my numbers. I closed like almost 80 this year. I think about 40 are repeat or past client referrals, and like 10 of them are past client referrals of somebody else.
10 of them?
nice.
But I don't even ask. So if I felt like if I asked, I'd probably do another 2
Well,
or 3
Mike's
per
doing it from
month.
a different. Mike, you've introduced a concept here that I haven't really considered before. And instead of, I think maybe part of the mental block is when you're asking for a referral, you think you're asking for the name of somebody who wants to get a loan today. And I don't think that's what you're advocating. What you're advocating is
Definitely not.
because
Then I'm going to shoot myself in the foot, because who knows somebody who wants to do it today?
right. And I think that was a mental block at least in my mind. I think and it's just, this is my head trash, not the person I'm asking, is like, I think that I'm asking you for somebody who wants to buy a house today or wants to refinance today. And that might happen in a great refinance market, but for the most part, that's really not what you're talking about. You're talking about, how can I grow my database? How can I go from having a 500 person database to a 1,500 person database in 12 months? And then from a 1,500 person database to a 3,000 person database 12 months later. Like, what if you were always doubling the size of that people that you were communicating with, to your point, Chris, with your newsletter, and you had 3,000 people in HomeBot that were getting a HomeBot report every month. And I think that's where this becomes a lot more interesting and a whole different. So do you have training built for this? Do you already have like do you have scripts for this that you?
Well, I can share you with your scripts that I did, but I think here's the thing, Dave, and that's where I'm really looking forward to working with this team. I think everything has to be very specifically tailored to the individual.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the Todd Duncans and stuff of the world, they fail, because it's like, great, yeah, you need to ask for referrals, and I can beat you up for that, and I can beat you up for your daily activities. But like Jonathan, we were talking about, it's like, I want to spend the time doing analytics as to why the activities are not as successful. And how do I help you find something that works for you, that fits within your personality and things like that? So I don't think a script works necessarily. It's more into that place, but it is a mindset, right? There's a big mindset that is really, if I can get really good at that, kind of like I was explaining the first time I kind of was getting introductions for Liz, I'm going second, third, fourth, fifth generation, right? I'm asking for introductions from everybody. Because once I've already talked to you, that's so much easier to get you to introduce me to 3 more people than anything else. So it's both long-term database build, yes. But the truth of the matter is, when you talk to a whole bunch of people, eventually you're going to get people who are ready in the next couple of months too, right? There's also business today. It's not just the future. So it's kind of back and forth. And I can tell you, when we get to maybe black belt level of this, when I was an originator, you guys all laugh at this, but if you were a real estate agent, that was primarily my business, was realtors. I really was never good with attorneys, financial planners. I just understood, for whatever reason, the way realtors worked. And that's where all my business came from. But if you were a realtor who worked with me, the expectation is you introduce me to 1 new realtor a year. And if you didn't, then at my mid-year check-in, I'll be like, Dave, like, have I been falling down? Am I doing a good job? No, you're doing a great job, Mike. Well, I'm just curious because you haven't introduced me to anybody yet. When are you going to introduce me to a new realtor? And I made you introduce me to a new realtor because I hate cold calling. It doesn't work well. It really is hard. So I want to leverage all the stuff that I have. And you had to introduce me to a new realtor, and the new realtor had to introduce me to a new realtor. Right. And the process worked well for me. You know, my start in the loan business, 1991, by early 1993, I was the #1 loan officer in my market. And I had 3 of the top 10 agents that were mine. And that's all I did is I just created a value proposition that was compelling. It was tied to emotion so that there was a commitment for what I was going to do for them and what they were going to do for me. And I wanted to be introduced to people because I don't want to have to cold call. I did. Dave, you and I talked about that in the early days when my first few months, I kid you not, my goal was I needed 1 loan application every day. And so I had a stack of flyers and I was standing outside a grocery store passing out flyers to everybody that came in at 8 o'clock at night till I got my application for the day, right? But that was not fun. It's super uncomfortable for me. I don't like it. So, but what I have found is as originators, we're not good at that. And if we want to grow our business, start there. Start with the work you're already doing. Because otherwise, how many extra hours do you really have in the day when you're Giuseppe? Like, how many extra hours do you really have in a day that's like, oh, could you fit in an extra 20 realtor new meetings a week? And like, you don't have time. So what are you going to do? You want to grow your business.
Maybe a great goal for everybody this year is like, how big is your current database? And what's the goal for how big the database is 12 months from now, or how much you're going to grow it on a monthly basis? Because I mean, that's what you're talking about is creating, the loan officer with the most friends wins. I do agree with that sentiment from Tim Brahim.
Yeah. And here's the thing, and you'll all find like, Dave, you're way better than I am at like following up on specific goals. I'm very much more focused on the habits and the way that we conduct ourselves that leads to those things without me having to set the goal. Right. If I just simply went out there and created a habit of introductions, and I got 3 or 4 introductions from every person I talked to, whether I even loan apped them or not, right? And then just kind of leverage that 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation, my closing goals are going to happen automatically. They really will. Whether that's next month or 6 months from now, I will win that battle for sure, right? So I do very much focus on those habits. I'm very much into the psychology of why we don't and how we communicate with people we come into contact with, so it takes away the objections, right? It's really the same concept. I just have to understand, why do I not ask for things? Well, I don't ask for things usually because I have either a preconceived notion of rejection or I have experienced rejection and it made it uncomfortable. So how do I fix that? Well, it's just, like I said, it's the psychology of, why does someone not want to give it to you? Well, how do I overcome that objection in a very non-threatening way? By changing the terms. It's not a referral, it's an introduction, and explaining to them what I'm going to sell. Sometimes I have to script them on what to say if somebody calls to get over that fear. Almost like if you're doing a consultation with someone and it's, one husband, wife versus, other husband, wife, right? And you only have one person. Sometimes you have to help script them on how to say, no, I want to work with Mike, even though this person might want to work with somebody else. And I have to overcome those types of things too. If I want to overcome, I don't want somebody to shop me, right? So I go through and like, will you trust me? Yes, I'll trust you. We're going through, here's the rate. So what are you going to say when your friend a month from now, because this always happens to me, dang it. I don't know why, but a month from now, you're going to run into someone in a supermarket line who has a mother, brothers, cousins, dogs owner that's a loan officer and can do a better rate. What are you going to say to them at that point in time? Right? And what are you going to say to people who say you're dumb for, you could get a better rate? What are you going to say? You arm people with those things, they feel so much more confident. Sometimes I lost business like that just because people didn't know what to say. I lost business to other loan officers because the realtors didn't know what to say because they're terrible salespeople. So I tell them what to say. And if you're going to switch from Chris to me as a loan officer, because I'm going in and I'm talking about today we talked about these agents who are all of a sudden giving us business that never have before. They're using someone, and rather than wait for that person to drop the ball so I can swoop in, why don't I go through and say, you know what? We can go through some scripting on that, but give me a shot because I can leverage it into 4 deals that are part of our database versus 1. And no one does that. I'm the only loan officer you'll ever run into that does that. Is that worth giving me 1 deal? What are you going to say to your loan officer when this happens? Well, because Chris kicks your ass. I don't know what to tell you. He gives me 3 for every single person I send to him. Right? I mean, I help them script those things so that they know how to break up with their significant other and use me as a loan officer, right? It's really no different than anything else. You just got to work at it.
Well, it's exciting, man, because it's a great, we talked about this. I think I mentioned this to you, is that last year at the beginning of the year, we focused on this. We brought somebody on that's getting, I think he said he had 8 referrals that particular month from past or from in process clients, 8 referrals that had come in for that month, and nobody here was getting anything like that. And then, he gave us some of his scripting about how he sets it up. And what you're talking about is a little bit different. It's actually on steroids, because you're talking about just getting introductions. And it's just a huge opportunity.
Yeah, because for me, I'm looking at, this is my career, right? It's a business. I'm just plugging people into a slot. Like I tell realtors, right? You just send me people. The answer is yes to everyone, just when, right? And I don't care if I'm plugging people into next month, 6 months from now, or 4 years from now. If I can take 10,000 people into database, and kind of like you were saying, Dave, how everybody has a next action. If everybody has a target of when they're going to be there, because even if it's, when I'm going to send them to Laurie so I can get myself a reverse or whatever it may be, right? There's going to be a target for every single person. If I have 10,000 people that have a loan at some point in time, whether that's, I'm setting it up for debt consolidation right now, a second lien, and then consolidating that, maybe it's, cash out for college, I don't know. But I'm always going to set that up. And if I take 10,000 people and I'm plugging them in somewhere, I got a great career. I got a great business. And it's way more fulfilling than what most of us do as originators for years and years. And that is, you're just new hamster, new wheel every month. Doesn't matter how many you put on the board last month, got to go recreate it this month. And it's hard.
And the good thing is, like, I feel like your conversion on past client obviously repeats pretty like 99%. But past client referrals, referring a friend, I mean, they probably know that friend longer than they have known that realtor. So the trust is usually with that person, right? Or family member. So your ability to convert, I don't know the stats, but probably better. I actually did get one, like I had a client that went under contract, then she referred a friend using the same realtor, but the realtor didn't refer the other friend.
Yeah.
But I got it, right? So that was like a month ago. They're both closing 3 days apart. So, but I haven't asked though. So I think,
yeah,
I've been afraid to, like, asking for referrals when I first meet someone's weird, because I'm always on the people will work with people they know, like, and trust. I'm like, I just met you, right? Like, you're not going to send me a referral, but maybe using a different word.
For sure. I mean, there's that aspect, but at the same time, we know that if I make you laugh, if I educate you and I connect with you emotionally, you're going to use me.
Well,
even though it's the first
hit
time.
on the no, like, and trust thing. I mean, we're able to get no, like, and trust from people pretty quickly, because you can typically get a social security number from them over the phone on the first conversation. And you can't do that without developing likability and trust. And in that first call, right? Like, it's like, or if you're sending them the link and they're going to fill out the application online, it's essentially the same thing. And so we're probably not giving ourselves enough credit for how much trust we have built in the first call, right? So
yeah. Well, and I want you to think of this mentality. Just sit back, and as you're kind of Monday morning quarterbacking each call that you have, think through, as I met with that person for the first time, did I act like I was sitting at the drive-through taking their order for a burger, or did I actually try to create a relationship with them of trust where we are going to work together for a common goal? Right. And I think when we're honest with ourselves, oftentimes, like, man, I just did it again. I just took an order from somebody. And now I'm hoping, and then I leave that conversation hoping that the order that I tried to deliver to them or told them what I could do was good enough that they're going to come back and actually pick me. Right. And there's a mentality that has to exist there in the confidence all the way through.
Because I just resonate with that way too much. I hate that feeling, and man, have I had it recently. So yeah,
And so we need to work at shifting that thing. And when we have that confidence, like I assume everybody's doing like annual mortgage reviews with your past clients.
trying to, yeah.
I would be asking every single freaking year for new introductions from them. Right? You know, and you truly talk about the most powerful things. And I shared this with Jonathan yesterday, a guy that I trained 30 years ago, Mike Dean. Still an old man. He was from Boston, had an accent and the language, the dirty language from Boston. I'm like, man, you're just never going to win business from realtors because they just want their butts kissed all the time. I don't know how you're going to do that. And so he, you know what he did? He went out and he self-generated every one of his loans. He talked to people, servers, people at the bars, everything else. He just talked to people, got people, kept building a database, generated his loans, and then he would call realtors like, I got somebody who's qualified, pre-approved, by a $600,000 home. Do you want to do the deal? By the way, I expect your next two. 1-for-2 trade. Pretty powerful too, right? So the more we can do that and get those introductions in our annual mortgage reviews and with everybody that we talk to, those scenarios are going to happen. You're going to find people who see a home bought, they want to list a house, they want to sell. And when you start, you know, having your annual reviews, hopefully with your referral partners, not just your mortgage clients, and we're looking at this like, okay, you know, Dave, you sent me 4 people this year. I leveraged it into 20. Here's our joint database and here's how it's looking. How do we increase our joint database? There's things that I can do to try to do a little bit better job of that. Give me all of the deals that you sent to someone else. I'll adopt their mortgage, so I'll give them home bought, I'll communicate with them. Give me your database and I will market them into our joint database. Or, you know, looking at MMI data here, it looks like you went 8 other places besides the 4 that came to me. So my 4 turned into 20. How many did your 8 that you gave someone else turn into? You know, what is our opportunity for this next year to grow our business? All of those things. See what I'm saying? It's just a mindset overall. And if you live in that mindset and it becomes second nature to you, it's really not hard. And everyone who's done it, like I said, averages over 3. I have some that average 7, 8, but everyone averages at least 3 for everyone they talk to. So we'll talk more in detail about that to try to customize it to each person and, you know, kind of give you some thoughts and ideas. And the cool thing about it too is what I want to try to do to help all of you is just kind of be looking at, my wife always says everything is a science project. You know, what do we turn up the dosage on? What do we turn down the dosage on? And let's look at what's working and what's not and figure it out. Because it will be different for each of you. Your personalities have to come through, because anytime it's, you know, sounds like a sales script or something like that, it turns people off. They have to genuinely believe and know. It's not just believe, but it's really know that, you know, when we're working together, my goal is to help you create generational wealth through real estate. That's my goal. You, your kids, everyone else, that's my goal. It's a journey that we're on. It's almost like, picture like you're a financial advisor instead of a mortgage client, right? It's not a transaction. Transaction is totally irrelevant. When people know that, it's amazing. I used to call it my Macy's Santa Claus script when I would, you know, tell people I'll refer them somewhere else for a lower rate. And it blew people's minds. And 90% of the time, like, no, I don't want that. I want you. Cool. And then when they ran into that person, I'll be like, we talked about that. Remember, we talked about what would happen if there's this. I'm competitive, but I'm not the best. If you wanted the best rate, remember, I was going to refer you. So we're past that, you know, type of thing. So overall, that's what I'm really looking forward to with this group. So you've got such an amazing group of originators. I'm really excited about it. But my goal is to help everybody, just give you nudges, because you already know the things. You're, you know, great originators. But if I can help you unlock some things in your minds to make your business better and reach your potential, that's my why in life, is to see what your potential really can be. You know, and I look at Giuseppe, dude, like your potential is probably, I mean, it's, you know, I bet you could do 100 loans in a month if you wanted to. Now, maybe you don't want to, but you have the potential to do so. So, you know, I just want to unlock that potential for every person until they say, you know what, I'm good. So looking forward to it. Could be a good year.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
This is great. All right, guys. Well, I think I love the direction this is going with Mike's help. So I'm excited about, instead of just doing the normal annual goal setting that we all do, like have a different perspective of what is it you want to, what new habit do you want to implement in your business that would, like, because this is business changing. I think what he's talking about here, and the leverage that you would have with real estate agent partners is astronomical. And then you only need a few, right? You don't need 20 realtors. So this is great. Lori, there's a lot of stuff here for you too. So it's gonna be exciting. So run on. Thanks, Mike.
All right.
All right, guys. Thanks. Let's go have a great day.